do right here is go back. Way back. Back into time.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Celebrating 20 years of New England Championship Wrestling. This is the Regeneration Podcast.
And now, here are your hosts, Sheldon Goldberg, Joe Matarazzo, and Kevin Castro.
Welcome, everyone. It is time once again for the NECW Regeneration Podcast, celebrating 20 years of New England Championship Wrestling. Sheldon Goldberg with you as always, and joining me as always, Joe Matarazzo.
What's going on, guys?
Kevin Castro.
Hey, guys.
And we are joined this week by our very special guest, NECW producer, cameraman, editor, oftentimes director, and a very valued member of the NECW team, Mr. Anthony Moschella. Anthony, how are you?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for everything you've done for NECW and continue to do, and we're going to talk a little bit about that to get us started, and we're going to have a bonus match a little bit later. We're going to take a look at a match from January 19th, 2008. We're going to see Rick Fuller, the NECW Heavyweight Champion at the time, taking on Jason Blade. We're going to talk about that match. We're going to talk about some stuff that we've been watching of late and all sorts of other things. So with that, Anthony, welcome to the show. And let's start by asking you to give us a little thumbnail description of how you came to NECW.
Well, it's a pretty cool introduction, actually. I actually had met producer Brian during his tenure as cameraman, and he had suggested to me, he had known that I had a little bit of a background with audio and filming, so he said, "Why don't you come check out what I've been doing with this wrestling company?" And I came in initially just as a fan. I would say I was, he brought me to some shows. He didn't really impose me too much on people, which, looking back now, I definitely appreciated that. Otherwise, I felt like I would have been shoehorned into the history, but he definitely let me get my own footing. And, after a few shows, I said, yeah, this is definitely something that I would love to work on with you. And then here we are, at least a decade later.
Now, when I was watching the bonus match, which we'll talk about in depth a little bit later, but I thought I saw you shooting ringside. Yeah,
there's definitely a few of those earlier ones like that you can catch me at ringside. Definitely it's just weird to see myself like that now because I'm behind the filming so often that it's almost weird to see myself on the other side of the lens sometimes. So it's always a treat. Plus, seeing Brian is always funny too, with his chain wallets and bandanas.
It's his NECW uniform.
Damn. I was like, damn, I used to look a lot better too. What happened? It's like, man, I let myself go. I gotta use it as inspiration as well.
Well, there you go. But no, you guys definitely have been incredibly valuable to NECW, and you can tell by this 20th anniversary collection, when you guys get involved, the quality of the footage, the quality of the video jumps immeasurably.
Yeah, it's crazy when I see, some of these ones I watched that, we didn't do, or it was just him and someone else. There was a few that I didn't even recognize. But I think when it was like me, him and Shooter, I'd say that was probably some of the best stuff. I could make some arguments later on that would counteract that, but for the most part, I definitely think we improved the look of the product. Nothing was really looking like that. Any of our competition at the time, it just looked cheap,
Mm-hmm.
And just simple stuff like, your hard camera's crooked, or your cameras don't match. That's
right.
like fundamental shit, that people just don't take into consideration. It's just like it's an afterthought. Like, oh man, I probably should have done that. I mean, that's the stuff that, like, luckily, you know, how I was taught, I mean, that's the stuff you drilled home. It's like, if it doesn't look good before you hit the record button, then it's not going to look good after you hit it. So,
right. Had you had any involvement in wrestling at all before you got involved with us?
To be honest, no. I mean, I've always really, really been into wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm with the ECW Revere shows. I never missed a single one. Even some of the, you know, the later period stuff, and even the transition into, like, the indie shows. I mean, even a lot of those, like I said, I only got into one of the Good Time shows, and I think that was, like, later on. It was weird. I think at that period of time, I had almost given up. I was so discouraged with, like, how wrestling was starting to go at that point in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. I kind of, like, threw my hands up and stepped back a bit.
So you get into NECW, and what changes?
I just like the. I think what it was just the aspect of just, like, being right there. I think that's what, like, solidified it with ECW, was like, you were there. You know what I mean? You were in. When you go to, like, a bigger show, it's like, unless you're dropping big money, you're not. Like, you know what I mean? You're just kind of a spectator there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The matches were always cool. The talent was always, like, something different too. That was another thing. Like, a lot of the time, some of the people that you see in NECW you didn't see elsewhere. I think that was one of the key components. I think a lot of people lost sight of that later on, talent-wise. But always having, like, your own roster and own stable is always, like, super key, especially in independent wrestling.
That, and also, of course, having regular shows and doing angles and programs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing, too, is just, like, there was actual storylines. That was something that was always missing. It was always something really arbitrary, like, you know, or something that you could just, you know, do once and then blow it off, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There was no long-term investment. There was no storytelling. There was no cinematography. Like, these are all the aspects that definitely, especially during, like, the TV era, was just firing on all cylinders. Nobody else had that. They just had one-off match of the same 5 guys that you see in every other independent federation.
You came in about what year?
09?
Okay.
Maybe 2010?
So, yeah, we had already been doing the internet TVs for quite a while at that point.
And that's what I mean. Like, that stuff definitely showed that there was more to it than some of these other competition. It just, like I said, the aspect of having one-off matches kind of, you know, evades me sometimes.
Well, to me, that wasn't what wrestling was about. Giving guys the opportunity to be in angles and be in programs.
Yeah, tell your story, man.
Right.
Whatever it is. You could have a crappy story, and if you tell it good, it's an amazing story. Mm-hmm. That's what people forget sometimes.
What, do you remember your first show with us?
The first show that I shot?
Yeah.
Definitely the Armory. I have to look back. I want to say it might have been right after Birthday Bash, the first show after Birthday Bash. Mm-hmm. And I was super nervous. I remember that. You know, Brian had given me the, you know, what he needs me to do. And I was just like, man, I fucked this up, you know.
Now
he is never going to live this down, and I'll never be able to show my face here again.
Oh.
Because it was already weird. I feel like some talent was like, man, wasn't this kid just behind the guardrail like the last show? Why is he filming my match?
You find that a lot in independent wrestling. You never know when the guy that bought a ticket last month is part of the show the next month.
But even for me, I felt, you know, at a point sometimes uncomfortable with that. I feel like, damn, like there should have been like a bigger transition from that. But it literally was like one show that, and then the very next show was like, I mean, I had gone to a few shows prior, but the transition was literally the very next show. Hey, you want to take the camera? And I was like, hell yeah.
Well, that's the NECW tradition. Just throw them in the deep end of the pool and see if they swim.
Yeah, and I was going to say, luckily you lucked out that I actually had some skills to throw in the mix, you know?
Well, we did luck out. That is a true statement.
And I did too, because honestly, like, looking back at some of these like matches, like I'm like, damn, like I have like a pretty cool history of like who I've actually been able to say like I filmed over the years, both like in NECW and elsewhere as well. So it's like looking back at that, it's just like crazy. I'm like, damn, all these like future stars. Like even it was funny. Like my buddy's like a big Lorcan fan, and I was just like, yeah, I mean, if only you knew.
They're right. Any particular stories of guys that made a big impression on you, talent-wise?
See, I could take this question a bunch of different ways. Because, like, a bunch of people, I'd say, I don't know, kind of maybe rubbed me the wrong way in terms, but there was definitely people whose, like, work I really appreciated over the years. I'd definitely say anything Crown Jewels, 100%. Damon's awesome. Tony's awesome. I mean, like I said, it's just, you can't go wrong. Definitely anything we did with Belmont and Gorman. I mean, that was the coolest stuff. I remember the boiler room thing we did with Poe and Belmont.
Yes.
Loved that. That was one of some of our favorite stuff. We made that room look like the deepest, darkest dungeon somehow. I don't know how we did it.
Yes.
And that was the thing, too. I did start, I should say that I did start helping Brian in the back with promos initially first, before hard cam. I think that's the case as well. Which was a lot of fun, because something that you think is so easy and so should just be, you know, clockwork to everyone, probably the hardest part. You know, they can go out there and they can do these crazy matches, tell this amazing story, and then when they come back to verbally tell you the story, it's like some of them either knock it out of the park or they're terrible, you know?
Oh, don't we know?
But some of those were like the best, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Man, I could think of so many times just going into cut, you know, like, because Brian was ruthless with them. He wouldn't let it. I'd be like, yeah, it's good enough. He'd be like, no, do it right.
Did you happen to see Impact this week?
This week, no. Usually, I'm pretty religious with it, so it's definitely one of my favorite out of all the current programming. I'd say that it's probably top of the food chain for me right now. I saw a clip online today of Alicia Edwards, our Alexis Nevaeh, doing some kind of a DJ gimmick, and it just cracked me up. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of stuff that's missing. Like, I want to have fun, but I don't want to be like insulted, my intelligence insulted. I know the difference between like funny, haha, funny, and you know, making fun of me funny.
Clearly, they listen to this show.
Maybe they do.
Because we were putting her over that we could get her to do these, you know, just. And the worst part was Matt Stryker and D'Lo. I think it was Stryker that came out and said, "Well, you can tell she's from Southie." Well, clearly Stryker's not from Boston, so
right.
Yeah.
Right.
She probably tries to explain South Shore, and they're like, "Oh, South Boston, okay."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, we know what you mean.
Tourists.
It's all Boston, right?
Right.
Some teacher he is. Geography was not his thing, I guess.
Right.
I actually got to do this this rando show with him, and I had to set him up for some commentary. He's a good dude. I definitely I'm a fan of Matt Stryker as a person as well as a talent. So.
He's a good kid. He worked for us once.
Yeah. I don't think I did that one though.
No, that was before you. That's before Brian.
And that's what I mean. If you look back at some of these, like, you know, like the stuff, some of these sites that keep track of like every match ever, like, it's crazy to see, like, you know, stuff that's under the belt. I mean, stuff that we were doing at the time, just crazy stuff.
There's lots of stuff that I haven't even put back online yet.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And like, I know how you are with like keeping stuff. You got everything, you know what I mean? So it's like, man, I can only imagine what he's got like hoarded away from all of our eyes, you know? Because just some of the stuff I've turned in, I haven't seen. So it's like, man, I can only imagine like what else he's got.
Definitely a walk down memory lane every time I turn on the computer,
But that's the best, If you don't have like the memories of actually doing it, then what does it matter at the end of the day?
Right. And, this has been an interesting exercise in just putting this stuff back out there, giving people some definitive idea of the fact that our company has this 20-year history and all the things that we've done and the people that have worked for us and that we've worked with and just the level of stuff that we were doing before anybody else was doing anything like it. So, it's cool to look back on. And one of the reasons that we wanted to have you, we had Paul Richard last week, we had Brian the week before. We wanted to talk to some of the people that were instrumental in creating all that, apart from ourselves. I mean, people know Joe because they've seen him on TV. They know Kevin because they've seen him on TV. They know me because they've seen me on TV or heard me on radio or whatever. But they don't get to hear from guys like yourself. Without yourself, without Brian, without people like Brian Wilkins, who I don't think any of you have actually met. He does our website. There's no NECW without you guys. So people need to know that there's people behind this.
Yeah.
It's not just the people that are out front. There's a group of people behind. It's not really a huge group of people, but there's people behind it. So we wanted to give you your props, and I know that you wanted to weigh in on stuff too. So, it's good to have you on here, and it's good to hear your voice and so forth.
Yeah, I know. We're in the midst of crazy times, and I think that's one of the other things that's so good about, airing some of these classic things is like, right now everything's all screwed up. We're not like doing the things that we used to do. And I think like seeing these things is almost like, it helps people, remember, it wasn't all shitty,
Right. And the other thing too is I think people need to understand a 20th anniversary only comes along once.
Yep.
It's a big milestone. And if we don't put that out there, if we don't wave our own flag, nobody else is going to wave it for us. There's going to be an NECW going forward in some way, shape, or form or another. But having this look back, giving people this prism to look at, gives us a chance to refocus our energies so that when we move forward again and we're into doing new things, that people have an understanding of where it's coming from. Because we're looking to take this up a couple of notches once we get back to doing live stuff again.
And that's what I mean, like looking back on some of the things, like there's so many things over the years that I've just stuff that you don't notice initially, and then years later you're like, oh man, I can't believe I did something like that. Like,
right.
So many nuances that like I see, and I was like, man, I would change that if I could.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's part of the growth. I mean, that's part of that's what makes a company, an entity, anything. It gives it its character.
I definitely think that over the years, when you look at this series, you see a progression. You see the look of things get better. You see the booking get better. You see a cohesion behind it as it moves forward, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, because that was the thing. Like a lot of times, the indie wrestling at that time was just either like a crappy ECW clone, or it just looked bad. You know what I mean? And like, I think this was like the first time it was like, there was actually attention to detail in some things.
And it was treated like a real promotion and not like just a one night.
Right. That's what I mean. It felt like something special. It didn't feel like you were just going to some Jamoke's wrestling party. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that's what a lot of these things are. It's just kind of like, it just seems like it's just like a social get together, and it's not taken as if it's a legitimate wrestling company. And believe me, I'm all for like the social fun and games. I mean, that's the best part about it, right? But I mean, it just
I wouldn't know. I'm too worried about getting all the stuff done.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. You know, I was gonna say, poor Sheldon. He's always got 9 million things going. He can't even enjoy the fruits of his labors sometimes.
Well,
and it's true. I think nobody puts more into it than you. Mm-hmm. You're there before the bell and after. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of people don't take that into consideration too. Not to mention that it all pretty much falls in your lap if shit goes wrong. Right. So,
but I wouldn't trade it for anything, to be honest with you. You know,
and I don't blame you. And that's what I mean. Like once you start doing it, and that's and it's funny because you talked to about Brian stepping away and me stepping up. Like, there's no way he would step all the way away. He can't.
Right.
And I know exactly what he means. It's the same with me. Like. Mm-hmm. Now that you're here and you've done it, like it's you're not just gonna be like, nah, screw this, I'm out. Like that doesn't happen like that. It's now, unfortunately, for better or worse, a part of you.
Mm-hmm. And we've all been really tight as far as personally goes.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's funny. Even my parents asked, have you talked to Sheldon at all? Have you talked to Sheldon? I'm like, I stay in contact with him regularly, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't really talk to anybody. You know what I mean? Like, there's limited people that I talk to, so even staying in contact with anyone is, rare for me. So when somebody does, it goes a long way with me.
When I was putting this series together, I was always shooting stuff over to you to see what you thought.
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. Even like I said, it's always something good to look back on too, and that's what I mean. Like it's always presented well. Like I said, you've always cared about the presentation. That's always shown. You know what I mean? Everything.
Thank you.
And I can think of so many times that I'd be like, I don't think there's any problem with this, and you'd be like, no, like there's this and there's this, and it's just even things that I wouldn't think of. You know what I mean? Like just the way either the way the camera looks or the crowd reacts. Just the match pacing in general, that stuff, to me, a lot of that stuff, sometimes I think just the energy, the live energy makes up for it. And it's like, you almost got to forget that, you're also making television out of this. So that live energy aspect that, runs so many wrestling shows, you're losing that. And I think that's one of the things that people are trying to figure out now is, how do you present wrestling without that aspect? And as you can see, WWE's got their TV screens, AEW's got their talent, TNA's got nobody, and I think they all work to a certain level and degree. It's how you present it. Because, nothing beats having a packed house of wrestling fans. I mean, there's nothing better than that.
Absolutely.
So if you can translate that somehow visually, then that's the true magic in wrestling, especially in wrestling production.
Back in the day, in the days of the territories, they used to do TV tapings. I remember having coffee with Bob Backlund one day, and he was telling us that in some of the territories that he worked, when they were doing TV tapings, they would do it in the TV studio, and there wouldn't be an audience at all. There would just be pictures of people painted on a backdrop.
and I bet you they made it work.
I sure did.
Yeah,
they sure did. But
that's and I think wrestlers now, they're gonna have to learn how to adapt. Because like I said, I don't think for a good period of time we're not gonna see the way it used to be, and it's definitely gonna be a modified version when it does return. Or at least the way I see it, right?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a modified version. I think we're going to have crowds eventually. And it may take a while to get the country vaccinated. And
what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Then you're going to be, as a promoter, then you're going to have to... That's what I mean. There's so many X factors that come into play. Are you going to have people sign waivers? Are you going to prevent people from coming in if they're not? You know what I mean? There's so many... It's crazy to think about this stuff is actually happening, and it's we're in the midst of it. But
I wouldn't run anything given the current climate. Forget it.
I mean, there's
even if I could. even if we could, I wouldn't do it. I mean, first of all, there's nothing worse than shooting wrestling to nobody.
I know, and that's the crazy part is now when I see these like smattering of fans in a thing, and it's like acceptable. It's like, man, this is like almost going against like what we were taught in terms of what it needs to look visually. You got to have a packed hard cam side. Now it's like you're gonna have everybody 6 feet, and it's what's funny is looking back at some of these shows that I've shot over the years. That's kind of always been the way people sit. They always sit like 6 feet apart from each other, and you can never get them to sit properly. No matter how much you beg them or force them, they're always trying to sit all weird.
In the smaller places, yeah. When when the seats aren't fixed and they can move them around, it happens
exactly.
quite a bit.
I'd be like, just put a seat out for every person as they come in. That's the only way to do this right.
Eventually, it's going to get back to normal.
Yeah.
I mean, it may take another year, but it's going to eventually get back to what we remembered as normal, without social distancing, without all this stuff. Everybody's going to have to be vaccinated, and it's going to take time before all that clicks in. But there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There is going to be a normal, as we knew it, returning. The only question is when. And my thing is, why do it before then?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. There was so many people. I get it, but like, find a different way to present yourself. Like, if you're wrestling talent and you're not cutting like online promos, marketing yourself like every chance that you can get, and you're just waiting for your like match, like. Dude, I don't understand. Like, that's what I don't understand about the business. Like, now it's so easy to make yourself like a viral phenomenon. Like, it doesn't even matter what your wrestling ability is. And like, I'm one of those people that like, if your wrestling ability is terrible, there's no future for you. But like, I've been proved otherwise so many times.
Well, the bar is definitely lowered.
And then I saw it. This is funny. I have to bring this up because I saw this today. Mick Foley said today that, this current generation of wrestlers is just as tough as the last generation. A good friend of mine, trainee number 1, you might know him. He stated, who's our generation's Haku? Like, can you think of anybody that's as tough as Haku?
No.
So then what the hell is Mick Foley talking about?
I think he's taking too many blows to the head.
That's what I mean. Like I said, that man's responsible for some timeless events and moments, but man, is he so out of touch with what's going on in the real world. It's just unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Well, you could put Lesnar in that category. He's probably the one. What's that?
I was going to say, but I even have a hard time putting him in the wrestler category.
Well, as far as a fighter, as far as a legit tough guy, I mean, I wouldn't want to tangle with him. And they don't portray him like this anymore, but Matt Riddle's another one that could go. And I'll tell you, Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah,
and Shelton Benjamin's probably the only guy that could probably take Lesnar off his feet.
Yeah,
Legit taught him. And
that can go, but to say as like a whole, like, I don't know. I think that's just such a ridiculous statement. I can't think of, I think of like, I mean, that's the whole like tough guy era. You just pooping all over,
Well, there's no more bar fights. The guys don't go out drinking like they used to. So used to be if you got in a bar fight and you lost your job.
Oh yeah.
So you had to be tough.
Right.
And that's the bar that I think it should be at now. I think you should have to. I think like a civilian can challenge you, and if you lose, then like that's it. You're
but the challenges are Grand Theft Auto and Madden, 2000.
Right.
It's like that's their challenges right now. It's just not the same group of people.
When I was growing up, we used to say to ourselves, "Well, what if Bruno Sammartino and the Crusher were in a shoot? Who would win?" I mean, what's the equivalent today? Well, if Orange Cassidy and Matt Cardona are going to do a shoot, who gives a shit? Who cares who would win?
Yeah.
But what's interesting though is
I was going to say we all lose.
Right, exactly.
all the people that Joe named were, that have a phenomenal amateur background or they're trained MMA fighters.
Right.
When you have someone like Haku who was just a straight up badass,
Just a tough guy.
that's all it was. Like, you know, if a fight did break out in a bar, he's just going to be the last person standing, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like, I see just that nobody even exudes that kind of, like, manliness, masculinity, just tough guy at all, really.
But the thing that makes that even more interesting is...
And that's what, like, drew me in.
They didn't really portray that with him on TV.
No.
Yeah.
No, he was just kind of especially in WWF, he was just a mid-card guy. And then WCW didn't really do much with him either. But, I mean, if those rosters got into a legitimate fight, you know, who's going to walk away?
I mean, see, I was always a fan of, like, I always, like, a fan of those, like, WCW mid-card guys. I mean, I think that was, to me, that was, like, the last hoorah of wrestling were those dudes, because those were the dudes that were, like, carrying these promotions.
Mm-hmm.
There is one guy around now that I'd say I could probably almost put the tough guy title on. Silas Young over in Ring of Honor.
Yeah,
is just
but that's
like
what I mean.
one of the...
He looks the part. That's what I mean. He looks like if I saw that dude, I'd be like, oh, shit, that guy's going to kill me.
Yep.
And that's what I mean. Like, I've met, like, some of the, you know, the stars of today, and they just don't, you know, they just don't do that. I want to be, like, not scared, but I want to be intimidated, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be like, you know, that you're somebody special. Like, I look at somebody like, you know, like an Adam Cole. It's just like, come on, man. Like, if I think I can beat you up, like, I shouldn't want to pay money to see you. That's the way I look at it, right?
That's a logical way to look at it. People want to see people that are bigger than life.
It's
legit. Exactly. That's what I mean. Take me away from my normal day-to-day life. I don't want to see the guy that could have bagged my groceries earlier. You know what I mean? I want to see the guy that's flipping cars over and in a junkyard somewhere or something, you know?
Oh, God.
Well, I think social media is taken away from that mystique, too. Because how many times has somebody, you know, you could go out there and have a kick-ass match, and then they go on social media and like, off to Stop and Shop. What if Ted DiBiase had done that? You know, it would have, you know, you drive by.
And that's what I mean. It's like, you could almost trace it back to, like, you know, like the killing of kayfabe or whatnot. But, like, it's like you should still be able to differentiate that stuff. You know what I mean? You still should be at the core. If you're a wrestler, you should be a wrestler. That should define you. And I know plenty of wrestlers that do have that mentality. Where that's it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a wrestler. I take what I do seriously. I look the part. I dress the part. I act the part, you know? Mm-hmm. And mad respect for those. For the ones that don't, you know, I'm just going to probably poo-poo on them. Either behind closed doors or, you know, around them and their peers. That's just how it is.
It's tough now promoting wrestling because the talent pool has become so watered down. You get so many of these guys that look at an Orange Cassidy, that look at some of these guys coming up today, and they just don't fit the mold of what we knew as professional wrestlers.
And the crazy part is like, that's the stuff that, like, sells tickets and puts asses in seats.
Well, the challenge is creating a product that has some semblance of athletic credibility to it.
Yeah.
I think part of the issue now, though, is you figure years ago when you're learning the business or you're wanting to get into the business, you're studying tapes, you're studying old matches, and you're learning that way. And now that they have so many video games that are so realistic, people are learning more from that, and I think that's why it's all high spots and no selling, is because in the games it's just go, 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 then you know, the match is over. And it's just a completely different mindset now.
Yeah, I mean, you go online, on social media, what do you see? You see GIFs of high spots. You see clips of big moments in matches. You don't see bell-to-bell matches. No. That's the minority of stuff that you see. Yeah, you do see them now and then, but that's the minority. You know, people just whittle down the oh holy shit moments, and that's it. You know,
everyone's just trying to go viral now. It doesn't matter about the match. It's
the attention span too. Everyone's got an attention span that's that big, you know?
I'm sorry, what were you saying? I wasn't paying attention.
Very good.
But yeah, that's really what it boils down to. People want these like micro-dosed moments. Even my buddy was just saying today, he goes, I get all my wrestling news from What Culture. They just break it down into this little like 5-minute video. It just brings me up to speed on what's going on. Because he was catching up for the Royal Rumble. And he said that was like an indispensable tool because he's not going to watch all this content. And that's just, like I said, that's just how majority of people consume content now.
It's so true. Who has time?
Want that?
So that's
Who has time to watch 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, 2 hours of AEW?
You're asking me to invest 5 hours of WWE in a week, 8 hours with it better hold my attention. It better be worth me taking that time away from whatever else it is I could be doing. Yeah. And especially when you get somebody who actually does it for a living, now they can sit there and they can break it down for you. Mm-hmm. And because it's a lot of investment of my time. Mm-hmm. Make me want to do that.
What I would hear from a lot of people when we were on WMFP is, man, how great your show's a half hour. I can watch it on my lunch break.
That was one of the best parts. Is it was literally a half hour of awesome. There was no need to fill any time. Any time that was filled was stuff that was needed. If it was there for a reason.
Right.
There was no like, oh man, we got to find 5 more minutes to fill this, or you know what I mean. There was never that. It was always, if anything, like, how am I going to make this fit into a half an hour?
Right. Are we going to have to pick the match up in progress? Are we going to have to edit it down?
Have to drop the entrances. Exactly, and that's what I mean. Most people, they don't even consider those things. Or like I said, they just show you the spots, and there's no build-up. There's no nothing, and and that's what I mean. I think the art behind wrestling is starting to get lost in just the excitement aspect of it.
I think in a very real way, we have to retrain people. The great promoters knew how to sell you what they wanted you to buy.
Yeah.
And that's part of the challenge that's going to be in front of us when we come back to live events.
So that's what concerns me about the empty arena era, is that you don't have that feedback. So they are kind of force-feeding you what they want. Mm-hmm. And my other concern is, how many times have you watched a match on the indie level where the people in the ring aren't listening to the crowd?
Right.
Yeah.
True.
So
I was going to say everyone, or just...
But now you're going to have these people who didn't listen to the crowd before and don't know when to take it up a notch or slow it down, just going through the motions, and I just think it's going to create even worse habits.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to definitely take a while to reacclimate people to working in front of crowds again.
Yeah. It's going to take them a bunch of... I mean, I think for some that had been privy to that before, I think they'll be able to pick it back up. But like the other thing is like, it's going to rely on them to realize that it's going to be more than just doing a big move to pop the crowd. Mm. You got to make the crowd care about you before you pop the crowd.
I agree. Tell you what,
and
let's why don't we take a look at our bonus match?
Yeah, excellent.
And we'll talk about that for a little bit, and then we'll get back to our discussion. So we're going to take you back now to January 19th, 2008. NECW Heavyweight Champion Big Rick Fuller taking on Jason Blade. Let's take a look at that match, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Time here on this Genesis Eve edition of NECW TV. Big Rick Fuller, the NECW Triple Crown Champion, getting set to make his entrance here. Fuller taking a big risk defending his title. just before Genesis. Big Rick Fuller, certainly a force to be reckoned with here in New England Championship Wrestling. Fuller, a legend in New England, a former WCW star. And believe it or not, Big Rick Fuller was at one time one half of the NWA World Tag Team Champions. Defending the title with Knuckles Nelson, managed by the late great Boston bad boy Tony Rumble. Fuller, the current NECW Triple Crown champion. A validation of sorts for one Big Rick Fuller. Fuller cuts a wide swath here in New England Championship Wrestling. A man respected, admired, and feared all at the same time. Fuller's opponent getting set to enter the ring here. Young man with quite the reputation and quite a storied history in NECW and PWF. Jason Blade, looking to upset the apple cart here tonight in New England Championship Wrestling. Played a great fan favorite here in NECW. Crowd definitely on the side of Jason Blade. Alas, this is not a popularity contest as we get set for the introductions from Chris Norman.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall in 60 times, and it is for the NECW Triple Crown Championship. Your referee is NECW Senior Official Rich Bass. Introducing first the challenger from Providence, Rhode Island, weighing in at 202 pounds, Jason Blade. And his opponent from Middleborough, Massachusetts, weighing in at 300 pounds, he is the current NECW Triple Crown Champion, Big Rick Fuller.
Fuller getting a smattering of applause. NECW fans respecting Big Rick Fuller, though they may not agree with his tactics. Fuller's got the mic here.
First of all, Little Man, this is supposed to be a heavyweight championship match.
Uh-oh.
I don't see how you qualify for a heavyweight championship match. I'm going to show you to find out. Rick Fuller, I don't qualify as a heavyweight. That's what you're saying. That's what you're telling all these people. Well, Rick, let me enlighten you on something. Before you were a Triple Crown heavyweight champion, I held the PWF Northeast and Mayhem heavyweight championships.
True statement right there.
So Rick, if you want to be champion, you want to prove to me that you're a champion, Rick? Rick.
Blade laying down the challenge right here. Blade not backing up a step from Big Rick Fuller. Fuller with the size and the power. Blade with the speed. And the mat skills. The bell has gone. And we are set for action. Both men circling each other, collar and elbow tie-up. And Fuller wins the test of strength easily.
It's got to be too easy. Are you kidding me?
Fuller saying it's got to be too easy.
Jewelry.
I don't think Jason Blade is too easy on any night. Jason Blade has established many, many times that he is capable of beating anyone on any given night, including Big Rick Fuller. Once again, Fuller powering Blade into the ropes. Fuller intimidating the referee, and now trying to intimidate Jason Blade. Fuller misses and Blade retaliates. Blade pounding away on Fuller. Fuller misses the clothesline. Blade with a big kick right to the chest and a drop kick. Backs up the champion. Fuller whipping Blade to the corner, missing. And once again, Blade with the drop kick sends the champion to the outside. Blade coming over the top, landing on the apron. Oh, Blade just tagged him. I don't think Big Rick Fuller expected this. Fuller tossing Blade back into the ring. Blade off the ropes. Fuller catches him. Drops him right down. Not even a side slam, just picked him up and drilled him. Fuller with that foot right in the throat. Rich Bass telling him to break it up. Big body slam by Fuller. Drops the leg. Cover by Fuller. And only two. Fuller cinching in that front chancery, trying to sap the energy from Jason Blade. That's how you slow down a faster man. And Fuller with a big knee to the midsection. This guy's tough. Another knee. Blade face first to the buckle. And now Fuller stalking his prey. Uh-oh. Chop time. And Fuller once again with a foot right across the back of the neck of Jason Blade. A choke over that middle rope. Fuller caught with a kick. Blade on the comeback trail. Blade backing Fuller up into the corner. Shoulder tackles on the champion. And now it's Blade firing away. Fuller reversing the Irish whip. Blade over the top. Blade using his speed and quickness to back up Big Rick Fuller. Oh, Fuller just caught him. What a clothesline. Fuller with a cover. This could be it. But only two. Fuller tries again. Blade manages to kick out again. Jason Blade, a very determined athlete here in New England Championship Wrestling. Fuller just brutalizing the former PWF champion with kicks and another boot across the throat. Fuller trying to establish his dominance over Blade and doing so successfully at the moment. Fuller slapping Blade. And now Fuller tries for a body slam. Blade rolls him up. Cover right here, and only two. Fuller retaliates with a clothesline, but Blade caught Fuller by surprise and almost had the 3 count. Now Fuller with a rear chin lock, trying to wear it down Jason Blade. Fuller, big, strong, possibly in the best shape of his life. Not carrying around a lot of extra weight. Blade powering his way out. Fuller catches him, flush in the gut, and a cover. Only 2. Blade rolling right out of that. Fuller now with Blade in the corner. Uh-oh, chop time! Oh my goodness. And now it's Fuller with a knee across the throat. Kick right between the shoulder blades. And now it's Fuller trying to tear the face of Jason Blade. Fuller is such a dominant athlete. Blade, though, coming back right here. This is a guy who's not going to give up no matter what. Shoulder tackle. Blade over the top. Sunset flip. Fuller hanging on. Fuller just tagged him. Coming straight at this guy is not going to get it done. Oh, huge chop by Fuller. Knee right to the chest and a cover. Only 2. Well, even Jason Blade has got to be feeling the attack here of Big Rick Fuller. Fuller has amazing stamina. He can grind you down. Now Fuller tying up the legs. Big Rick Fuller with a cover. Not enough to get Blade. Fuller really didn't hook him in there. Let me tell you, Jason Blade is a first-class athlete. But you are looking at, oh man, just a clubbing blow right to the small of the back. Big Rick Fuller cannot be appreciated until you actually see this man in person. Jason Blade has hung in with Big Rick Fuller. And Blade now on the comeback trail. Blade trying to back up this big man. And Fuller reverses the Irish whip, catches him in the midsection. Fuller, just an awesome force. Blade is laid out right here. Fuller once again going for the rear chin lock. Really trying to wear Blade down. Blade having to expend a lot of energy here, trying to get out of the hold. He's going to contend with Fuller's weight. Now you see Blade in a seated position. Blade getting back up to his feet. Elbows to the midsection of Fuller. And now it's Blade off the ropes. Clothesline missed. Again. High cross body. Catches Fuller and a drop kick. And another. Oh man, Fuller just blocked that drop kick with a knee and another. Wow. Blade still coming back. Give this kid credit for being so game in the face of the awesome force. And a moonsault right here, cover. And only 2. Near fall for Blade, and you got to give him credit for continuing the attack. Oh, Fuller's got him up. Blade flips over. Blade rolls him up. Here's a cover. And only 2. Blade staying right with the champion. Big chop. And another. Oh, my. Blade face first to the buckle. Knee to the back. Uh-oh, chop doctor. Oh, my goodness. This is going to be it right here. And it is.
And your winner of the match is still NECW Triple Crown Champion,
A game effort by Jason Blade, but not enough to stop Big Rick Fuller.
He doesn't even belong in the same ring with me.
I don't buy that. Jason Blade definitely belongs in the same ring as Big Rick Fuller, and so does Max Bauer. This coming Saturday night in Quincy, Massachusetts. Folks, make sure you get your tickets. The Battle of the Giants. Big Rick Fuller taking on Max Bauer for the NECW Triple Crown Championship. Can that man survive Big Max Bauer? And perhaps the question should be, can Big Max Bauer overcome the awesome force that is Big Rick Fuller? Folks, we will see you this coming Saturday night in Quincy, Massachusetts. Join us for Genesis 7 at the National Guard Armory. All right. Big Rick Fuller. Definitely one of the stalwarts of independent wrestling in New England. Tremendous background. Guy was in WCW, was at one point one half of the NWA World Tag Team Champions with Knuckles Nelson. Definitely a guy who, when he walked through the curtain, he just looked on a different level than everybody else. Jason Blade, underrated. There was a point in time, I think he was working with Gabe Sapolsky in Evolve, or one of those offshoot companies that wasn't Ring of Honor that Gabe was involved in. And it didn't quite click for Jason Blade, unfortunately. But I'm going to start with Joe, because you were around at this point. What did you think of this match, Joe?
So it's funny watching it now compared to when we were there doing it, because you pick up on so much more, because we've all learned so much more. Mm-hmm. So the things that jump right out at you, when you watch right off the bat, you can tell. I mean, you put Rick over, being from WCW, so he already had been to a big dance. He already knew, what the steps were. Mm-hmm. So when you see Jason Blade come in and he jumps up and when they announce him and he's facing the crowd, his back's to the hard cam. And then Fuller gets announced. And, of course, he's facing the right way. He's facing the hard cam. So you notice things like that right off the bat. And that's a learning curve for anybody doing television at that point. And, just coming out of the gate trying to get everybody on board, looking for the camera to begin with. The size difference between the two of them, being almost 100 pounds between the two of them, it was like a Rocky against Thunderlips type of thing.
Yep.
What I liked about it, the believability, was that Jason, when he took advantage of catching Rick off guard, he never let down. Mm-hmm. He kept it coming. He didn't showboat. He just kept going. He was relentless and kept him on the ropes until he finally got cut off. And then Rick just started having his way with him at that point. But he still tried to fight back. It looked more like a legit fight with him. And then again, even when the holds were being done, again, my attention went right to it. You see Rick turning him and getting Jason facing the hard cam. So now they're facing the right way. Now, with that being said, as good as Rick is, and as good as he was to do that, when you hold the Triple W Championship belt upside down at the end when you win, everybody's still learning as you're going. So, but great match.
I think you could hear Brian telling him that it was upside down.
Yes.
I did hear.
Definitely.
Yes. Kevin, you had to have run into Rick Fuller many times.
Oh, yeah, both of them. Both Rick and Jason Blade, pretty much from when I started.
Yeah.
What was interesting with this match is right when looking at the names, I naturally assumed that they were both going to be faces. Just because every place I've seen them, they've worked as a face.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that Fuller was going to be a heel. My next thought was chops. There's going to be a lot of chops. Rick Fuller's chops are some of the most brutal things that I've ever felt. I'm sure that there's plenty of other people in wrestling that will agree with that they are probably the hardest chops they would feel. So I was expecting a lot of them, and I actually decided to do one of the little prison counts, the lines with the, and I was a little disappointed because I think I was only up to I only had 2 marked down as the match, halfway through the match, but then at one point, he more than made up for it.
Yes.
I agree with Joe. I very much enjoyed it was a game of cat and mouse. That Jason Blade just kept going. Fuller sold a lot more than I was expecting for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you knew that as fast as his pace was, the second he got caught, it wasn't going to be as fun for him. As you were saying, Jason Blade being underrated, to me, from the second I saw him, I was like, this is like what a star is, like an up-and-coming star. And I'm still surprised that, he didn't go further than he did.
Why do you think that is?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if he stopped. I don't know if it was maybe a work thing or a family thing or just lost his passion. I honestly, I haven't talked to him in a very long time, so I don't know what happened. I always expected to see him in one of, well, at the time, the big 3, but at least the big 1. Or somewhere nationally.
Right. I would have thought he would have caught on in Ring of Honor. I don't know what happened there. Maybe Gabe gave up on him. I don't know really what took place there. Anthony, you were obviously there because we can see you at ringside. So what were your thoughts about this?
At that time, definitely, I was probably just marking out, not going to lie.
Yeah.
Looking back now, though, definitely, like I said, I'll say it too. Jason Blade's awesome. Definitely one of the standout dudes that I've had the opportunity to shoot over the years. Mm-hmm. Definitely always put on a good match. And I mean, like, if you see him in this match, like, this is clearly Rick Fuller, like, putting him over. Because, like I said, I don't think anyone at that time he was just squashing everybody at that point in time, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
It was just domination around the board. And he looks awesome. That's the other thing too, is when he slimmed down like that, man, he was moving so much better in the ring. It was so good. And I love at the beginning when he goes, "Is that Mike Jazz?"
Yes.
I thought that was cool. That was the first thing I popped for in the match. I was like, yes, totally. I was going to say, but that was such a cool match, just in general. It definitely showed what, like, I'll put it this way. I watched the match with one of my coworkers, right? Yeah. And he's, like, privy to wrestling, but he's not, like, into wrestling like that. And I was like, man, that match was almost 20, that was almost 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So that felt like it just blinked in a blink of an eye. And that's what I mean from somebody, like, that can see it without that, like, untainted view, thinks that. And that's what I mean. Like, the match pacing was perfect. Obviously, there's little, like, technical things that you notice. Like, obviously, as, like, a producer, I notice things. But it was just, in general, like, a great definition what was coming out at that time. And that's kind of what, like I said, pushed me to, want to work with NECW, because I mean, that was, like I said, that was different than what everybody else was putting on at the time, whether or not they want to admit it.
Right. There's a match online on our YouTube channel that's part of our Legendary series. That's Rick Fuller versus Ryan Matthews.
Yep.
That is the viciousness of Rick Fuller on full display.
Yeah, I used to hate Ryan Matthews. That was one of the when I came, I decided, I said, I'm gonna hate certain people in this company because I don't like their wrestling character. I think he was one of the poor unfortunate souls in that.
Right.
Him and the Rock God, they both got it from me real bad. even Eddie, all of them when I first started, they were, I was like the worst, obnoxious fan at that point in time. Now, like I said, looking back, it's so cool.
In that Rick Fuller Ryan Matthews match, Fuller chops Ryan Matthews so hard he literally leaves his handprint on the chest of Ryan Matthews.
Yep, I've been there.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. At the end of the match, when they have that, Brian shooting down from the apron, and Jason's chest is just lit up.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that Fuller used to sell.
I mean. He was always in real good shape too, so you almost don't expect it from them. You expect it from somebody with a little bit more, meat on him. But man, he just.
Fuller had T-shirts that he sold with a picture of his handprint, and it would say "Gut Chops."
One of the things you said during commentary too was that you cannot appreciate Rick Fuller until you see him live, and that's true. When you see him in person, just to see how the size of him,
right?
It's just not the fact that he's taller than you, but he makes you feel small. He is that intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about that intimidation factor, and it's almost like I said, a lost art now. It's just that I want to be apprehensive to even make eye contact with you. You know what I mean? That's the feeling that I want.
Right.
And finding that nowadays, kind of hard.
The first match I actually wrestled was against Rick Fuller. It was.
Oh no!
And you lived to tell the tale.
Yes, well, not all of me, because it was Rick Fuller and Mike Pava against me and 4 other people.
Oh my god!
And I did very little in the match, and at the very end for the finish, I was clotheslined off the apron to the floor, and this was low ceiling, so very low ring. So I took the bump off the floor. Got up, went to the back, grabbed my stuff because I was double booked, and it wasn't until I got out of the car that I realized that my knee was completely wrecked.
Oh,
just from that small bump.
No.
And of course, you're looking late 90s, having a shitty job, didn't have health insurance. I'm like, oh, it'll heal.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
And that is why I do backstage commentary.
See, there's a story for everything in wrestling.
There sure is.
Indeed.
There sure is. That's why I stayed out of the ring.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. I got real lucky in that aspect because, man, I can only imagine what some of these guys would want to do to me.
I've been brittle for the last 40 years, so there was no hope for me. I had to stick to my side of the business.
Stay in your lane. It's all
right.
Exactly.
Good at. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I'll tell you a funny story about Jason Blade too. This is one of the post the breakup era, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know this was during the breakup era, I worked for both as a cameraman, and man, was it a zoo over there as opposed. It was just 2 different worlds, and that was, I think one of to the benefit of me, it worked out because I wasn't really vested. Like I said, you guys all had your business dealings prior, and I was kind of just there as the outsider. So I luckily was able to work both, and I mean, it was like two different worlds. But I remember there was this ladder match with Jason Blade that they had, and the match was incredible. And I just remember them, like, I don't know, kind of treating him like a low-level talent, and they didn't stiff him on pay, but they definitely, like, didn't pay him what he was worth in my eyes. And I thought that was kind of shitty. And I was always like, man, if I was Jason Blade, I would have just knocked them all out right there. I mean, it was like a ladder match. I'm pretty sure there was like color, maybe. I mean, it was like there was a lot to it, you know. And I don't know. I always remember that, and I was just like, man, he's a better dude than I for rolling with that, you know.
Oh, I can tell you stories.
That's why I was good to see, and I was like, man, I wonder if he somehow like knew that too. And then it was like, obviously, yeah, there I am. So that's why.
I would find out after the split, like guys that would say, "Oh, Sheldon stiffed me on pay," or "Sheldon did this," or "Sheldon didn't do this for me," when I wasn't the one paying people. I didn't make up the payroll. I wasn't touching any of that.
And that was one of the things that, like, you know, obviously the wrestling community,
they would throw me under the bus.
Loves to talk. And, you know, everybody would, you know, always have these like horror stories. And I'm like, man, everything that I've ever done over at NECW has been like perfect. Like, what bad experiences are you having, and like when did you have them? And yeah, I mean, they all look like they come from a particular like time period, and it looks like it was when, you know, it wasn't all one person's cookie jar, you know?
Right.
And you know, that it was weird too, because like I was like looked at like they were like, oh, that's, you know, I'd show up there and like definitely instant heat like anytime I went there. And I can only imagine like what was being said about me while like, you know, while being there. But I did have a wicked funny story there for one match. I'd gotten there like super early, and I had just like sat in my car like smoking gimmick the entire day. And then by the time the match came, I must have like nodded out during the match. Just fell asleep. I mean, the match probably wasn't very good because there was a lot of bad action during that time period. But I like woke up to the ending bell, and it was like, "Here's your winner," and I was just like, "Damn, I really hope the footage isn't bad." I mean, I don't know how it could have been 30 seconds, it could have been 5 seconds, it could have been 10 minutes. I have no idea. So I never got to see that match. I don't even remember which match it is. I wish I did, but I know that match never aired. And I never got a chance to see it, and I never worked for them again after that.
Pee Wee
Federation. It was like a fitting end, because otherwise I was giving them like fantastic work. I mean, they were like lucking out, you know what I mean? And just that one day, just you know, it all evaporated for them. But it was like a good riddance thing, because I definitely had a bad vibe when I was there. I only had a few people that would actually talk to me or approach me, because it was probably like, I assume, mad taboo to talk to me, thinking that I'll run back and tell Sheldon or whatever.
Who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and I look back like what's been accomplished during that period of time, and what's been accomplished during the NECW portion. I mean, sleeps and bounds, you know.
Yeah, that's all I need to know, you know.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. It was just a funny experience either way, though. I just want to know how long it was, and what the footage looks like. I just want to see the camera dip down, do that little, because we've all seen it.
20 minutes of the floor, you know.
Somebody locks a tripod, and all of a sudden the camera just starts going and going. I guarantee that happened. Or they probably didn't even notice, you know. One or the other.
It's funny, when that whole split happened, I predicted exactly what was going to take place. That they were going to open up, the first show or two was going to draw, and when people figured out that it wasn't the same thing, it would slowly go downhill until it fell by the wayside. That's exactly what happened.
One of the first shows that I did, I'll tell you, this is hilarious. You must remember Kevin Quinn.
Sure.
One one of my favorite refs at least. His car got stolen for a show. I could, and the craziest part was that I parked on the same street, and I legitimately left my car unlocked, didn't even consider it, and like I had, tons of gear in the car, and I was just like, man, is this what it's going to be like doing shows down here? Because I mean, like, who just fucking steals a car at a wrestling show? Like, you know what I mean?
Wasn't it in a bad neighborhood?
So it was in like.
I would think so.
So it that like a community center,
right?
But like, yeah, I mean, you could
community for criminals.
There was like speed bumps on this in like the residential neighborhoods. So like, if you were like committing a crime, you can't just like zoom away.
Right.
Oh my god.
Well, yeah. the story that I heard behind that was they got a deal that there would be no rent to run there, but they had to let the kids from the community center see the matches for free.
Yep.
So, in their infinite lack of wisdom, we'll get a free building, but it's in a crappy part of town that nobody wants to go to. People will get their cars stolen. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it was a trip, And it's like, you almost think he's kidding. I was like, you sure you didn't park on a different street? And it was like a brand new car, too. Like, I want to say, maybe like a week or something, like crazy. Just utterly hilarious.
I remember hearing about this business with Kevin getting his car stolen. Somebody had to drive him home.
Yeah, that was the thing, and I think he was there with his kid too.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it was like, oh man, what a horrible. And that was when he wasn't reffing at the time.
They broke him in as a way to pay him back.
Yeah.
Well, they paid him back pretty good, huh?
Yeah. Well, he became a decent ref, but
Yeah.
I mean, I had this. The whole reason that Kevin Quinn started going to independent wrestling shows was he was a fan of the Mouthpiece Wrestling Show. He listened to us on radio. He found us on the radio, and then he started coming to the shows, and then before you know it, he's in the business.
You just have a way of drawing people in, Sheldon. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. Kind of like flies to... Well, never mind. But that happens,
It's all subjective. It's all subjective.
No, that happens. People see stuff that we're doing that they think because they can reach out and touch it, it's close to them, that they can, I can be a part of that.
They want to be a part of it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's also how you have a good product. They feel connected.
Right.
That's one of the things, even with some of like the music stuff that I've done over the years, like you got to have that connection to it, and if you don't have the connection, then what are you even there for?
Right.
Yeah. Anthony, what do you normally watch when it comes to wrestling these days?
So I watch it all pretty much. There's stuff that I watch less than others. I watch Raw probably the least.
Mm-hmm.
I stay up on NXT, AEW, TNA pretty regularly.
Okay.
SmackDown occasionally. I mean, the WWE is losing me. I will almost watch it out of habit. You know what I mean?
Habit.
Yeah. It's
I'll just watch clips, or I'll watch a pay-per-view now and then. Or if there's going to be something that really catches my interest, somebody that I know or have a personal connection with that's going to be on that I want to see, I'll go out of my way to watch it. But otherwise, it's just too big of a time investment.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anything, it'll be on in the background.
Right.
I'll be like, doing something or whatever. And I'm so tuned to that stuff that, like, if I hear or see something that I know is going to be good, I'll stop what I'm doing or whatever. But I have a hard time sitting down. It's just so different than what brought me here in the first place.
Right.
And even what I, prefer, the stuff I prefer to watch in my own personal time. I mean, I'm a huge WCW fan. So, I mean, anything that's close to that, I'm obviously digging.
Right.
I mean, I kind of like AEW because it does have aspects of, you know, the bad years of WCW aspect, which I like, especially into that early TNA stuff. That was all very good. And then people hate on that and think it's the, you know, the dumbest, stupidest stuff ever.
But it's funny, you watch that on Pluto TV, they have an Impact Wrestling channel.
Yep.
And you'll see a lot of that old stuff, and it's really good.
So
really
good.
good.
It really holds up, yeah.
Yeah.
And I say to myself, why didn't I watch this when it was on?
It was funny.
Yeah.
Brian used to always try to, he was always like, oh man, they got the Wednesday night pay-per-views for like $3 or $4 or whatever it was. And I was like, dude, I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for like no Wednesday pay-per-view for $3. Get out of here. Nowadays, like obviously that model, you know, is a lot easier for people nowadays to digest because it's just how digital consumption is with things.
Right.
But back then, like, come on, like, dude, I got cable. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell am I gonna get a pay-per-view on a Wednesday night for an hour? Are you out of your mind?
I got some of those United Wrestling Network Tuesday night pay-per-views.
Yeah, I know, but it was like I said, for now that
right,
that's works now, but
right
back then, 2001, come on,
yeah,
you know, I was like 19, 20 years old. I was last thing on my mind was that on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, well, you know, if you want to watch wrestling, there's no shortage of it, anytime you want it.
Exactly, and then like I said, now with all these databases, I mean, you could literally pull up anything, you know, that they haven't deemed, you know, too offensive.
One of the things that we like to do on the podcast is talk about things that we're watching this week. And one of the things I forgot to bring it up last week, I want to make sure that I brought it up this week, is if you have Amazon Prime, there is a documentary on Amazon Prime called Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. And this is something that I highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, see it. I also got a copy on Blu-ray, and I lent it to you, Joe. I don't know if you've got a chance to check it out yet.
This weekend, that's my plan. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's about Vampiro, how he got into wrestling, but more than that, it's about his relationship with his daughter. It's fascinating. It's kind of heartbreaking in some respects, but I mean, you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's table the discussion of it until you've actually seen it. Kevin, I've asked Joe to pass that off to you once he's done with it, because I know you don't have Amazon Prime, but I'm telling you, this is really extraordinary. I watched it twice. Now, full disclosure, I've known Vampiro for a long time. I met him many years ago, just as he was starting to click. We have a mutual friend, a guy by the name of Bob Barnett, and we spent quite a bit of time together. He's a great guy. There's a lot of people that have heat with him. A lot of people think that he's messed up or whatever. I always been fond of him. Always had a lot of respect for him. He's an interesting character, and just if you get a chance, check out this documentary. You won't regret it. It's really awesome. The other thing that I'm looking forward to seeing that I haven't seen yet is on the WWE Network, the Pat Patterson documentary.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. Have you seen that, Anthony?
The Patterson or the Vampiro?
Either one.
I have not. I actually, I did mention it to a few of my friends, and they did check it out. They said it was awesome. I actually have a funny Vampiro story too. He does a lot with the Juggalo Championship Wrestling,
right,
and ICP and all them throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
So he's always at their like gatherings, and he was there one year, and we were all kind of hanging out, with the wrestling section and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
He came by, and I was like, "Oh, Chris Angel, I'm a big fan of your magic." Now that was when he had that was when he had like the shorter hair and like the the weird jeans and shit.
Yeah.
He just did not think it's funny. I mean, obviously everybody else in the vicinity thought it was like the funniest thing. And he just didn't. And he was so pissed. So pissed. He looked like he wanted to kill me. But, it obviously didn't happen. I'm, here to speak about it today.
He saw you in half.
Oh, yeah.
And make you disappear.
Right.
Exactly. But I was like, man, I hope the way he reacted, it was like he's not the first person to say this. Or like somebody was like, hey, man, that outfit makes you look like Chris Angel. And then 5 minutes later, I come up, Chris Angel, big fan of your magic. So good. I'm definitely interested to check that out because, like I said, he's always like been one of those dudes who's, his gimmick was cool, his work was cool.
He's a unique individual.
Yeah, and that's like I said, that's what's missing with a lot of these, a lot of the talent nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to hit all the check marks on that stuff, otherwise, it might not work.
You learn a lot of cool things about him, a lot of interesting things about him, and I won't give it away. I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Yeah,
but we'll talk about this again at a future time, and I'm going to be curious to get your thoughts once you've actually seen it. But I highly recommend it, so go check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you can also find Vampiro on Facebook. He's always going live and trying to motivate people.
I only do the Instagram and a little bit of the Twitter.
Right, right.
I think
smart man.
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay away. I don't know, man. I start learning a little too much about people that I don't necessarily want to know that much about.
Right.
I wish there was a way to you could categorize things more by how much of their bullshit do you want to see, and then have a percentage, and you could be like, I want to see 35% of this person's,
Right.
I think that would make social media better because I think I could fine tune things into a nice customizable experience.
Sounds like a plan. I like that.
Yeah, that's my next calling. I'll create a social media where you can literally customize how friendly you are with someone.
There you go.
With a numerical percentage.
There you go. That would save me a lot of time, I can tell you that.
Yeah, either that or one of your listeners will hear it and be like, I'm stealing that idea.
There you go.
Patent pending.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what happens.
It wouldn't be the first time somebody stole an idea from us.
I know, right?
Long history there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can only imagine, even some of the stuff you're doing now. I'm starting to see a little bit of some other stuff trickle out too from elsewhere.
Oh yeah.
So it goes to show you that yes, the eyes never leave.
Oh yeah.
And they're always interested in what's going on.
Our good friend Jamie Jammet Up Yurkowski is taking a page out of our playbook and doing an Inside Chaotic Wrestling podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
And like I said, wish him the best.
I'm telling you. Also, they have putting up Chaotic Classics.
Man, I wonder where that seems like
it's original.
Yeah, pretty original idea there.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, at least, like I said, being the inspiration sometimes is better than being the most recent one that did it. So
this is true. This is true.
I look back at a lot of that. I mean, even some of my shooting techniques, I've unfortunately borrowed those from somebody else as well. So,
Well, in our business, people lift things from people all the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's how you learn.
Oh, yeah, look at everybody's finishing moves or their coup de grace, whatever.
Right. But we're in a derivative business, so
you just got to do it. Put your own spin on it.
The thing is that I've been around so long that I know how to copy stuff that everybody else has forgotten. So it seems like it's original. But it's just been decades since anybody's ever seen it. So people think, "Oh, you invented that." Well, you kind of.
Let me scroll back another 20 years and see what we got here.
Right. Exactly.
That's what it'd be all like. It's already all in the palm of your hands at any point in time to call up at your mercy.
Well, history is important to know.
Yeah.
I worked for a Broadway producer many years ago by the name of Mitch Lee, and he said something to me that stuck with me ever since. And he said, you have to realize that the most forward-thinking people in any business are always the best historians. So I took that to heart.
Yeah. That's real good. I like that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of history, this episode is almost history. We're gonna wrap this up for this week. Anthony, it's been great to have you on. We'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing.
I was going to say,
this.
hopefully this is the most viewed episode. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I always hope. That. So for those of you who have been listening faithfully, we want your questions. Very important you send us your questions. Send them to regenerationnecw@gmail.com. We'll be happy to get those on and answer them. I know I had a couple of people that told me they were going to send me questions regarding last week's episode with Paul Richard. They wanted us to clarify some things. So we'll wait for those to come in, and then we'll be happy to clarify anything that you heard on the podcast that you'd like to know more about. And that's pretty much it. So for Joe Matarazzo and Kevin Castro, Sheldon Goldberg, thanks again for listening, everyone. Have a great week.
The Regeneration Podcast is a production of New England Championship Wrestling. To send us questions, comments, or feedback, email us at regenerationnecw@gmail.com.